Milo was not a hero, not a soldier, not even a trained explorer. He was just a traveler, a curious man who liked to fix old machines and walk under strange skies. That day, he was walking through a quiet forest on a lonely moon, where the trees glowed blue at night. The air was still, the birds were silent, and everything felt different. He saw the smoke first, a dark line rising into the sky, twisting like a snake. It didn't belong to this peaceful place. His feet moved fast, heart pounding. He followed the smoke, thinking maybe it was a small fire or a crashed drone, but what he found was nothing like that there. In the middle of a small crater was a broken alien ship. The metal was black and gold, glowing faintly with strange lights. One wing was torn off, wires hanging like vines. The crash had burned the grass, but it was not fresh. It had happened hours ago. Maybe more. Milo stepped closer, careful not to make loud noise. That's when he saw her, a girl small, maybe 10 or 12 years old in human years. She was sitting alone near the wreck, her knees pulled to her chest. Her skin was pale like moonlight, her hair long and white like snow. Her eyes were large, bright violet, full of tears. She was shaking, her body covered in dust and bruises. Milo stopped. She looked at him, eyes wide, breath stuck in her throat. She didn't move, didn't speak, just stared like a scared animal. Milo raised his hand slowly, showing he had no weapon. "It's okay," he said gently. "I won't hurt you, of course." She didn't understand the words, but maybe she understood the voice. Soft, kind, without fear. He took one step forward, then stopped. The girl flinched, her shoulders tightening, so he sat down instead. Right there on the burned grass. He didn't try to get closer. He just waited. Minutes passed. The wind blew softly, carrying the smell of ash and something sweet like flowers. The girl blinked, then looked away. Tears rolled down her cheeks, falling on her thin arms. Milo's heart ached. She was alone, scared, hurt, and not human, but she was still a child. Where was her family? Why was she alone? What had happened to her ship? Milo looked around. No footprints, no other life signs, only the broken ship and the crying girl. He reached into his bag slowly. Not for food, not for medicine, but for something small, a bottle. Clear and half full of soap liquid. Soap bubbles. Back on Earth, he used to carry it for fun. Sometimes he'd show it to village kids in far planets. They always laughed. He opened the bottle and dipped the small plastic ring. Then gently blew. A single bubble floated into the air. It shimmered with colors, pink, blue, gold, twisting in the light. The alien girl looked up, eyes wide. The bubble floated near her, then popped with a soft pop. Milo blew another one, and another soon. 5 or 6 bubbles danced through the air. The girl followed them with her eyes, her lips parting just a little. Her body stopped shaking for a moment. Then very softly she smiled, just a little, like a tiny flower blooming after a long winter. Milo didn't move, he just kept blowing bubbles, and the girl watched. Her eyes full of wonder. Somewhere far away, high on a tree or a hidden cliff, someone was watching, eyes glowing with power, breath held tight. It was not a soldier, not a spy, it was a queen. And the girl was not just any child, she was her daughter. The queen's heart burned with emotion, joy, fear, anger, and something else. She had followed the crash, had come secretly, but she had not shown herself, not yet. She wanted to see if the human was dangerous or kind, and now she watched her daughter smile for the first time since the war began. Because of a human, because of soap bubbles. The queen narrowed her eyes. She could step in now, call the guards, take the child back, but something told her not to. Not yet, because this man, this soft-voiced traveler with bubble toys, was doing something no alien warrior, no healer, no royal protector could do. He was healing the girl's heart. Not with power, but with peace. Milo didn't know any of this. He didn't know the girl was royal, or that he was being judged from afar. He just knew she looked a little less afraid now, and that was enough for him. But soon he would learn this was no ordinary girl, and his small act of kindness would change everything. The forest was still. The crash site remained quiet. Only the soft hum of the broken alien ship echoed in the background. But something gentle floated in the air. Soap bubbles. The human, Milo, sat on the burnt grass with the small bottle in his hand. He blew softly, and another round of rainbow-colored bubbles drifted toward the girl. The alien child didn't blink. Her violet eyes locked on the floating circles of light. She lifted one hand slowly, very slowly, and reached out. Her fingers moved through the air, shaky but curious. One bubble kissed her fingertip and popped. A tiny drop of soap fell on her hand. She gasped, not in fear, but in wonder. Another bubble landed on her knee and popped too. And then her lips curved, not fully, not confidently. But enough. She smiled. A true, soft, shy smile. Like sunshine breaking through cold clouds. Milo saw it and smiled back. He didn't speak. He just dipped the ring and blew again. This time he made many bubbles, big and small. Some floated high into the trees. Some danced close to her face, and one somehow rested on her white hair for a full second before bursting. The girl giggled, just once like a spark. Then again, longer this time, light and musical, Milo laughed too, a little surprised by the sound. He had not expected this, not here, not now. Not in the middle of a forest beside a crashed alien ship. But in that moment, all fear, all confusion faded. They were just two souls. One human, one alien, connected by simple joy behind the trees. Far above the crash site, hidden in a shimmering cloak, the queen watched with silent eyes. Her royal guard stood behind her, waiting, tense. But she raised one hand to keep them still. Her daughter, her only child, was laughing. The same child who had screamed during the crash. The same child who hadn't spoken a word in 2 days. The queen clenched her jaw, holding back tears. She had feared her daughter would fall into despair, that the fire inside her would burn too strong. But this human, this soft one with kind eyes and strange toys, was calming the fire. One guard whispered, "He's gaining her trust, my queen. He could be dangerous," another said. "Shall we remove him now?" But the queen shook her head slowly. She had seen 1,000 warriors, doctors, scientists. None had reached the princess like this. She remembered the old words passed down from her ancestors. The heir of light shall not bow to might, but laugh first with the pure of heart. And now, before her, the words were alive. The princess, unaware of her mother's presence, moved closer to Milo. Her eyes flicked to the soap bottle, then to his face. She tilted her head. Like asking a question, Milo understood her gaze. He gently handed her the bottle, showing her the ring and how to dip it. She mimicked him, dipping carefully, lips pressed together in concentration. She blew, but too hard. No bubble. Milo chuckled and nodded. Showing her again, she tried once more, this time softer. A bubble formed. She gasped with joy and clapped her hands, then she blew again, and another bubble danced through the air. She laughed fully now, arms waving, chasing her own creation. Milo sat back, smiling. In his mind, he didn't feel like a hero, he just felt lucky to see this moment. Lucky to make her laugh, but deep inside, something stirred in him too. This wasn't just fun anymore. This girl, this child was special. And he was the only one here with her. It became more than kindness. It became responsibility. He didn't know her name. Didn't know her people, her planet, or why she had crashed, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't leave her alone. Ever high above, the queen turned away slowly. Her heart heavy and full, a mother's heart, a leader's mind. She had tested the human, and the human had passed the first trial. But she could not show herself yet. There were rules, ancient laws. This was not just a child, it was the future queen. And Milo, without knowing, had stepped into a path that few survived. A path of bonding, a path of fire and trust. The queen whispered to her guards, "Let them be," and vanished back into the shadows. Meanwhile, the girl blew another bubble. It floated between her and Milo, and as it popped, she reached out and touched his hand. No words, just a look, a connection. In that quiet moment, a bond began to form, one that would change more than their lives. It would shake the stars and start a story that no one would believe except those who saw. The first time a bubble made a princess laugh. The sun was setting slowly, painting the sky with soft orange and deep purple. Milo and the alien girl sat beside the broken ship. Quiet now. No more bubbles floated in the air, but the warmth between them remained. The girl, who still hadn't spoken a word, leaned against a rock, her eyes growing heavy. Milo watched her carefully, still amazed that something as small as a soap bubble had brought her laughter. But now his eyes noticed something new. There were glowing marks on her skin. They looked like lines and symbols. Gently shining under the evening light, they pulsed, slowly like breathing. Faint blue at first, then soft purple. He hadn't seen them before. Maybe they only appeared when she felt safe. Or maybe they were wounds. He leaned a little closer. Not wanting to scare her, the symbols were not random. They moved in patterns, almost like they were alive. Milo whispered, "What are you?" But of course she didn't answer. She looked down at her arms and saw him staring. At first her body froze. Then she quickly pulled her knees to her chest, trying to hide her glowing skin. Her eyes filled with fear again. The same fear she had on the first day. Milo's heart dropped. He raised both hands gently and said, "It's okay." Then he touched his own chest with a finger and tapped twice, a simple sign to show peace. She watched him carefully, then, slowly she pointed to her chest too, and tapped once. The glow on her skin brightened. A symbol over her heart lit up more than the others. It looked like a star with 3 lines crossing through it. It pulsed with life almost like a heartbeat. In the hidden forest above, the queen watched again. But this time she stood closer without her guards. Her eyes were locked on that one symbol glowing on her daughter's chest. The mark of the flame heir, a royal birthmark that appeared only once every 1,000 years. A living code placed inside the body from birth. It was not just a symbol, it was power. If awakened too early, it could burn her from inside. If touched by the wrong soul, it could kill the one who touched it. And this human, this Milo, was now inches away from it. The queen's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to scream, to fly down and pull him away, but she didn't. She waited, watched, held her fear like a knife pressed to her own chest. The girl looked at Milo again, then did something strange. She reached out, gently took his hand, and placed it directly over the glowing symbol. Milo froze. He didn't know what to do. Her skin was warm, not hot, not burning, but alive. He felt a gentle humming under his palm, like touching the engine of a ship that had a heartbeat. Then something happened. A pulse of light flowed from her chest into his hand, and then, into him, images filled his mind. Not clear ones, but feelings. A cold room, a loud crash, someone screaming in another language, a hand pulling her from fire, a broken voice calling out her name. And then, a vision of a woman in golden armor. Standing on a hill, her eyes full of love and sorrow, the same eyes watching them now, hidden in the shadows. Milo gasped and pulled his hand away. The girl leaned back too, suddenly tired. But she didn't look afraid, she looked relieved. She pointed to the symbol on her chest, then touched his hand again, this time with a small smile, like saying, "Now you understand." Milo nodded slowly. He didn't understand it all, but he understood one thing. She had shared a part of herself, and he had been accepted in the trees above. The queen dropped to one knee. Tears touched her cheeks for the first time in years. He had passed the second test, contact with the royal flame, and he had survived. Only 1 in a million could hold that mark and live. But he did not just live, he felt, he listened. He respected the fire instead of fearing it. Far away, deep under the ground, something ancient felt the mark awaken. A sleeping beast opened one golden eye. The heir's signal had been touched, and the chains of old promises began to shake. Back at the crash site, the girl laid down beside Milo, her head resting on folded arms. The symbols on her skin slowly faded into nothing, like they had never been there at all. Milo watched the stars above, his thoughts quiet. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew the girl was no longer just a stranger. She was something much more, and he had just stepped into a world deeper than he ever imagined. The night had fallen completely. The forest was quiet again, but the air felt heavy. A strange glow came from the crashed ship, pulsing like a heartbeat. Milo sat beside the small fire he had made, while the alien girl slept close by, her breathing soft and steady. He didn't know what had really happened when he touched her glowing mark, but he could still feel it in his chest, a faint rhythm that wasn't his. It was as if a part of her energy now lived inside him. He didn't understand it, but somehow, he didn't feel afraid. Above them, hidden in the dark sky, the queen watched from her invisible craft, her body still and her eyes sharp. The starlight reflected in her silver crown, but her heart was restless. She had seen the human survive the touch of the royal flame, something no alien or human had ever done. Now she needed to know why. The queen turned to her old advisor, a tall alien with skin like dark glass. "Prepare the next test," she said quietly. "He must prove what lies within his soul." The advisor bowed. "Shall we reveal ourselves, my queen?" She shook her head, her voice low and cold. "No, not yet. This must be done in silence, back on the ground." The girl woke suddenly, her eyes glowing faint blue. She looked around in fear, as if she had heard something calling. Milo leaned toward her. "Hey, it's all right. You're safe," he whispered, but she didn't calm down. She pointed to the forest, her hand trembling. Something was moving between the trees. Not footsteps, not wind, something heavier. Slower, Milo stood up, picking up his flashlight. The beam of light shined across the tall trees but showed nothing. Then he heard it, a growl, low and deep, and suddenly, glowing yellow eyes appeared in the dark. Milo froze. He had seen many creatures during his travels, but this one was different. It was tall as a horse, covered in dark scales, and its mouth smoked like fire. The girl gasped and hid behind him. The creature stepped closer, sniffing the air. Growling louder, Milo whispered, "Stay back." But the creature lunged forward, its teeth sharp like blades. He grabbed a broken metal pipe from the ground and swung. The hit landed, but it did nothing. The creature barely flinched. Milo fell to the ground and the alien girl screamed. The creature raised its claw to strike. Then, in a moment of pure instinct, Milo shouted, "No!" A flash of light burst from his chest. The same glow as the mark on the girl's skin. The creature stopped mid-attack, blinded by the sudden light. Milo didn't know what was happening, but the mark on his hand, the one that had appeared when he touched her, was shining. The light spread into the air, forming a barrier around him and the girl. The creature roared, trying to break through, but it couldn't, hidden far above. The queen smiled faintly. Her test had begun, and the human had answered not with power, but with protection. The creature was no ordinary beast. It was a guardian illusion, created from ancient energy. It could not be killed, only repelled by true intent. The queen whispered, "Good. He defends without hate." But her eyes filled with tears she would not let fall because the human's light looked exactly like her late husband's, the king who had died years ago protecting their people. Down below, the alien girl stared at the shining barrier, her eyes wide in shock. Then slowly she reached out and touched the glowing edge. It didn't hurt her. It responded to her. The barrier turned from white to soft pink, the color of calm. The creature took a step back, confused, then turned and disappeared into the woods. Silence returned, the forest breathed again, and the glow around Milo faded, leaving him gasping for air. The girl crawled to him and pressed her small hands to his chest. He looked up and saw her smiling gently, tears in her eyes. She said one single word for the first time. "Safe." Milo froze, his heart skipping. She had spoken. Her voice was soft, strange, but beautiful. He smiled weakly. "Yeah, safe." Up above, the queen whispered the same word. Her test was complete. The human had proven his heart was pure. But deep inside her, fear grew stronger. Because every moment he stayed close to the princess, their connection deepened, and soon it would awaken something greater than either of them could control. The queen turned to the stars and whispered to herself, "Forgive me, my child, I cannot stop what has begun." Back on the ground, Milo sat by the fire again, exhausted. The girl sat beside him, holding the soap bubble bottle in her hands like a treasure. She dipped the ring into the liquid and blew softly. A single bubble rose into the air. It floated toward the stars, carrying light within. Neither of them noticed that high above, the queen followed its path with her eyes, and in that small bubble's reflection, her face looked full of love and pain because the next test would not be gentle. It would decide the fate of both their worlds. The stars shined bright above the forest. The wind moved gently through the glowing trees. Milo slept near the fire, his jacket wrapped around the small alien girl. She curled up beside him, peaceful, warm, safe for now. But something inside her had begun to change. Something old, something hidden, something burning, and it was waking up far above. The queen stood inside her ship, her eyes watching closely. She had seen the spark inside her daughter. She had known this moment would come, but she had hoped it would not come so soon. Her daughter was still too young, too fragile. The flame inside her, the royal fire, was not fully trained, and if it awakened now in fear or pain, it could destroy everything around her. One of her advisors stepped forward. "My queen, should we extract her now? Before it's too late?" The queen looked down at the two sleeping figures and whispered, "Not yet." "Why?" the advisor asked, voice tight with concern. "Because," she said softly, "he may be the only one who can calm her when it begins." Down in the forest, the fire crackled low. Milo stirred in his sleep. The girl's body shifted, her face tightening. She was dreaming, but not a normal dream. She saw fire, walls falling, screams. She saw her home planet in flames. She saw her mother reaching for her, then everything exploded. She woke up with a cry, eyes wide open, but her eyes were not violet anymore. They were red, glowing like embers. Her skin burned hot, steam rising from her arms. The strange marks on her skin returned, but this time, they blazed with angry orange light. The grass around her turned black. Smoke rose from the dirt. Milo woke suddenly, coughing. He sat up and gasped. She was glowing. The heat coming off her made it hard to breathe. Hey, he said, it's okay, I'm here. But the girl didn't hear him. She was lost in her fear, lost in the flame. Her body floated off the ground slightly. The air shimmered around her like a wave of heat. Her hands clenched, and the glowing marks pulsed with dangerous energy. Milo didn't know what to do. He stood slowly, shielding his face from the heat. Look at me, he said gently. I'm not leaving you. The fire around her flared, but his voice reached something deep inside her. She opened her mouth and screamed, a sound full of pain and power. A shockwave of red light blasted from her chest, throwing Milo back. He hit the ground hard, his head spinning, but he stood again, coughing. I'm not afraid, he whispered. Then he pulled out the small bottle from his pocket. The soap bubbles. His hand shook as he opened it. He dipped the ring, blew softly. One bubble floated into the burning air. It moved slowly toward her, and when it touched her skin, it didn't pop. It shimmered with a golden light and spun around her like a shield. Her glowing eyes followed it. Her body stopped shaking for a second. Milo blew another, then another. The bubbles danced around her, each one taking a little bit of the fire with it. The red glow in her eyes faded, turning to purple. Her feet touched the ground again. She looked at Milo, tears falling down her glowing cheeks. I hurt you, she said. Her voice breaking, Milo stepped forward, kneeling in front of her. No, he said gently. You were scared, but you didn't hurt me. He held out his hand. She looked at it for a moment, then placed her small hand in his. The fire inside her calmed. The symbols on her skin dimmed, the smoke cleared, and the night became still again. Up above, the queen fell to her knees. She pressed a hand to her chest, breath shaking. She survived it, she whispered. He saved her from herself. Her guards behind her looked at one another in awe. No one, not even her royal teachers, had ever been able to stop the flame when it awakened. But this human had done it with nothing but soft words, calm hands and bubbles. The queen stood slowly, her heart full of pride and fear. The connection between the two was now sealed. The flame had chosen, and the choice could not be undone. Back at the camp, the girl lay beside Milo again. This time, she placed her head on his chest. Her voice was soft as she whispered, "Thank you." Milo placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "You're not alone," he said, "not anymore." But even as peace returned, far across the galaxy, another set of eyes opened. Another voice hissed in the dark. "She lives, and she is not alone." And with that, something ancient began to move, something that would soon come hunting. The sun was rising slowly. Golden light touched the forest, pushing away the cold shadows of the night. Milo and the alien girl sat near the fire, quiet, watching the sky change color. Neither spoke much, but they both felt it. Something had changed between them. A deeper bond, a silent trust. He had seen her fire, and she had seen that he didn't run from it. Milo gave her a warm drink from his pack. She took it with both hands, sipping slowly. Her violet eyes calm but thoughtful. Birds chirped in the trees, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful, too peaceful, because far above them, inside a hovering stealth ship, the queen stood frozen in shock. A blinking red signal flashed on her screen, an emergency code she never wanted to see again. "They found her advisor whispered. "The outpost picked up her flame signal." The queen turned sharply. "Who found her?" The answer came like a knife. "General Tharek and the outer guard." The queen's face turned pale. Tharek had once been loyal, but he had long believed humans were weak, and now, if he reached her daughter before she did, "He'll think the girl has been taken," the queen said. "He'll see the human as a threat. Should we send a message to stop them?" Her guard asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, it's too late. They're already on the move." In the forest below, Milo heard a strange sound, a low hum, almost like thunder, but too steady, too mechanical. He stood up. Looking around, the girl grabbed his arm. Fear in her eyes. Suddenly, light beams dropped from the sky. 5, 6, 7. Alien soldiers in black armor landed in a circle around them. Weapons drawn, faces hidden. "Step away from the princess," one of them shouted. Milo raised both hands. "Wait, what? Princess?" But they didn't care. They grabbed the girl by the arm, pulling her behind them. She cried out, reaching back for Milo. He took a step forward, but a soldier pointed a weapon at his chest. "She's coming with us, human," another guard said. "You've done enough." The girl struggled, shouting something in her own language. Milo didn't understand the words, but the pain in her voice was clear. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to leave him. "Let her go," Milo shouted, stepping forward again. One soldier struck him in the stomach with a metal rod. He fell to his knees, coughing. "No!" the girl screamed, her eyes glowing again. The soldiers hesitated, surprised by her rising energy. But General Theric walked forward, armor shining in the sun. "Calm yourself." "Princess," he said coldly. "You're safe now." He turned to Milo, eyes full of hatred. "You touched her flame. How are you still alive?" Milo tried to speak, but Theric raised a hand. "I've seen your kind before," he said, soft, weak, always pretending to care. "You don't belong near the flame blood." The girl shook her head hard. Crying, she pulled away from the soldiers and ran to Milo, shielding him with her small body. "Enough!" Theric roared. He raised his weapon, aiming not at the girl, but at Milo. That's when the queen appeared. She dropped from the sky like light, her armor gold and silver, her eyes glowing like the sun. Her voice thundered, "Stand down!" Everyone froze, even Theric stepped back, shocked. "My queen?" he whispered. "You're here?" The queen walked forward slowly, her eyes locked on Theric. "You dare aim at the one who saved my daughter?" she said, voice cold and sharp. Theric lowered his weapon, but his face stayed hard. "My queen," he touched the fire, He calmed it," she snapped, "while you pointed weapons." He brought her peace. The queen stepped beside her daughter, who now held tightly onto Milo's arm. She looked at them, how close they stood, how safe the girl felt beside him. She turned to the guards. "From this moment on, he is under royal protection. Any harm to him is harm to me." The guards lowered their weapons. Even Theric had no words. The queen looked at Milo. Her eyes were softer now, filled with something deeper. Respect. "You don't know who she is, do you?" Milo shook his head slowly. The queen smiled a little. "She is not just a princess, she is the last of the flame bloodline. And you are the first human it has ever chosen." Milo stared. Stunned, he looked down at the girl beside him. She looked back, eyes full of light, and in that moment he understood. This was not just about kindness anymore. It was about destiny. But as the queen turned to lead them away, far beyond the trees, in the shadows of a black mountain, something watched through red eyes, and it whispered, "She is protected now, but not for long." The royal ship hovered silently over the forest clearing. Its golden wings spread wide like a giant bird of peace. Inside, Milo stood quietly near a window, watching the trees below disappear into clouds. He still couldn't believe any of this was real. Beside him stood the alien girl, the princess. She wore a new robe now, woven with glowing threads and marked with the royal crest. But she still held his hand tightly, like she didn't want to let go. The queen walked toward them, tall and graceful, her voice gentle. "We're almost home," she said. "The capital awaits your arrival." Milo looked at her, unsure. "I'm not a leader. I'm not even special," he said. "I just..." helped her smile. The queen smiled softly. "Sometimes. That is the rarest power of all." Then she turned to her daughter and spoke in her native tongue. The girl listened, nodded, and whispered something back. Then she looked up at Milo and said in English, "You are part of me now." Milo's heart felt heavy and full. He didn't know what that meant exactly, but he knew it was true. When the ship landed, thousands of alien citizens were gathered in the great square. Their skin glowed in soft colors, their eyes wide with hope and wonder. They had heard that the Flame Princess was alive, but they had not believed it, not truly, until now. When she stepped out holding Milo's hand, the crowd went silent. Then, one by one, they knelt, not just to her but to both of them. Milo stood frozen, unsure of what to do. The queen stepped beside him and placed a glowing pendant around his neck. It shimmered like a living star. "With this," she said, "you are now part of our story. You walked into our world with no power, no army, no purpose. But you gave my daughter something no one else could. Peace." Milo looked down at the girl, who smiled up at him. The crowd began to rise, their eyes warm, accepting him not as an outsider, but as one of them for the next few days. Milo was shown the capital, The shining towers, the deep gardens, the halls carved from crystal. Everywhere he went, people bowed respectfully. But it was the children who ran up to him, laughing and shouting. They didn't care that he was human. They only cared about the soap bubbles Milo would blow them. And the children would chase them through the royal gardens. The princess would laugh with them, and the queen would sometimes watch from her high balcony, her eyes full of quiet joy, but peace never stays forever. Not when old enemies are waiting. One evening, while Milo sat with the princess near a glowing pond, the sky turned dark. Too fast a shadow moved across the sun. The queen appeared beside them in full armor. "It's him," she said grimly, "the ancient one who hunted our flame before. He knows she's alive, and now he's coming." Milo stood slowly. "What does he want?" The queen's face was pale. "She carries the last royal fire," she said. "He wants to destroy it." The air trembled as something massive approached from the sky. A black ship shaped like a claw descended without sound. The crowd screamed. Guards rushed to protect the palace. The queen stepped forward, sword in hand, but the shadow stopped, not attacking, not speaking. Then a voice rang through the minds of all. "I see the fire lives," it said, "but she is bound to a human not worthy. Break the bond, or I burn your world." The princess trembled. Holding Milo's hand tighter, Milo looked at the queen. "What do I do?" he asked, voice shaking. She looked back, eyes full of fear and hope. "Show him what the fire really means." Milo stepped forward. He didn't have weapons, he didn't have armor. All he had was the pendant on his chest, the trust of a child, and soap bubbles in his pocket. He opened the bottle and blew. A single bubble floated through the air. The dark figure watched silently, confused. The bubble rose higher and higher, then shimmered bright gold. Inside it, memories appeared, the girl's smile, her laughter. The moment Milo held her through the fire, the bond between two souls, it was pure. The bubble exploded in golden light, and for a moment the sky glowed like dawn. The shadow paused, then it disappeared without a sound. Without a fight, the queen fell to her knees. The fire was saved, the kingdom was safe, because of a human who knew how to be gentle. Days later, in the royal hall, the queen placed a golden mark on Milo's hand. "You healed my daughter," she said, "and with her, you healed all of us." Milo didn't say anything. He just looked down at the girl, the princess, who now stood beside him. No longer afraid, no longer alone. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "You're home now?"